Good day, everyone. I am recording this lecture video for the lessons that will be tackled, in preparation for the midterm examinations. So what I want you to do is to watch carefully and take note of the gist of our discussions that will be tackled in this particular lecture video for the lessons that will be discussed. And if you ever hear any noises in my background as I am recording this video, please disregard them and focus on the sound of my voice. So this is the first lesson that will be included in the coverage for the midterm examination. We have elements of visual arts. So when we talk about elements of visual arts, we are going to be discussing now what are the different elements that are combined or associated in making visual art possible. So in this regard, we are going to be discussing about the following context or the following elements. So these are the basic form of elements of visual arts. First, we have the line. Of course, when we talk about the line, ito talaga yung pinaka-basic because the actual line is visible and is clearly expressed, such as the example presented. While the implied lines are either the dotted or the dashed lines. So when we talk about a line as an element of visual arts, that is the most basic form or basic element that there is present. Another is that lines have directions. We have three: horizontal, diagonal, and the vertical. So let's not get confused. Kung yung ganing horizontal, pahigda na siya. Kung yung vertical, patindog. Kung diagonal, pahiwi. Sa laktod nga pagkastorya, that's how we are going to understand. Kung yung horizontal, okay na siya. Pa right to left. Kung vertical gani, that's top to bottom. Kung diagonal gani, that's butanta na lang og sa orasan pa na siya, that's 11 o'clock to 5 o'clock. If you're going to look at it this way. Sige, let's try to attribute that kind of analysis. Kung mga itong horizontal, if we are going to follow the clock, the world's clock 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So when it's horizontal, that's 9 to 3. Vertical, 12 to 6. Diagonal, 11 to 5. Or 1 to 7. So that's how we are going to understand the directions of line. Okay. Another is that lines can be designated in spatial relations, such as perspective or perspectival line. Perspectival line can create the illusion of depth or kalamon. They are focused on a point called the vanishing point. Okay, so lines can form shapes of things in volume. This is done through tones, such as the examples below. Makita ninyo, there are dotted lines, there are examples of diagonal lines, there are examples. So basically, all of these shapes and volumes are still formed by lines. It's just that it is done through tones of the art material or the shape or volume. Now, when we talk about the different directions of line, firstly, we have the horizontal lines, which are parallel to the horizon. Vertical lines move up and down. Curved lines slowly change direction and form wiggly curves or spirals or circles. Diagonal lines are slant, as if they are either rising or falling, while organic lines are the types of lines found in nature. So these are the different, different directions of lines. Now, another, if we can see here, right? If you're going to base it, daghan makita diri that are examples of lines in this picture. So you have there the vertical, the horizontal, the diagonal. Daghan ma-attribute ani nga mga lines, right? It's just through the tone where we can distinguish the direction of the line that is being used. Okay. Now, in continuation, we also have this one, La Rive by Pablo Picasso. So, daga siya lines na yun siya imong tanawon nimo sa na ay vertical, na ay horizontal, na ay organic lines, diagonalized curved lines, if you're going to look at it closely, right? Another element of visual arts is color. So we have there the hue, the value, the intensity. Say, for example, you add black, that's called a shade. Therefore, add red or dark red is a shade of red. If you add white, that's called a tint. Pink is a tint of red. So that's the difference of the difference of the two. When we talk about value, this refers to the lightness and the darkness of the hue. Kung moingon po tag intensity, it is referring to the darkness and the dullness of the color. So that's the difference of the three. Kung moingon tag hue, ay duha ana, shade or tint. If you add black, that is a shade of red. If you add white, that is a tint of red. Kung moingon po tag value, it refers to the lightness or the darkness of the hue. Now, when you talk about intensity, it is now referring to the darkness or to the dullness of the color. While in this case, we base it in the color wheel. This helps us understand the relationship among colors. Hence, it is divided into three sections. We have three primary colors, the red, blue, and the yellow. Well, the secondary colors are called primary and secondary colors include the following, and we have violet, orange, and green, while the 12 primary, secondary, and tertiary colors involve these different colors. So that is how we look at the color wheel. Now, when we talk about the basic colors, we have here the primary colors such as red, yellow, and blue. The secondary, orange, green, and as well as the purple. Tertiary, ito na, red, orange, yellow, orange. You also have the yellow, orange, or yellow, green rather, the blue, green, blue, purple, and then the red, purple. So this is the basic colors in the color wheel. We have complementary colors where it is the exact opposite against each other. We also have the analogous colors for the primary, secondary, and tertiary colors side by side in a color wheel. So when you take analogous colors, mo ni siya purple or blue, right? Very green. So mo ni siya ginatawag na analogous. Complementary are these colors that are opposite from one another. So that's what we call complementary and analogous colors. Say, for example, The Kiss by Gustav Klimt. So you have here a lot of hues, volume, and intensity mixed in the color. It's not just only the shape, the line, etc., but it is basically looking into the color, no, that is being used, the color palette that is being used. So if you look it up in the color wheel, makita gini mo the basic colors that are mixed and matched with one another to portray a more cynical art form that is depicting a particular gesture. Okay? Or The Anatomy or Lesson of Dr. Nicholas Stolp by Rembrandt. So we have here a dead corpse, they open nila ang kamot, and then they're having discussions, and then the scholars are taking down notes. So if you can see the different color hues, the background seems to have darker, while the subjects seem to have a lighter, volume of color. Okay. Another is The Dance by Henry Matisse. You can see there the different shapes, the different blending of the colors. Basic colors, if you ask me, primary and secondary colors. Now, we also have texture. Texture is the characteristics of the surface, wherein this refers to how things feel when it is touched. So if you're just going to look at it, you're not going to see the texture. But if you're going to touch it, then you're going to know what is the texture of that particular surface. Therefore, there are two types of texture. The tactile texture, which is experienced when you touch something to feel its texture, while the visual texture is felt when you look at a photograph or an image that has texture, and it reminds you how those objects actually feel. Say, for example, rough and smooth. So there are two, tactile and visual. Kasi kalayan sa duwa, tactile is when you actually touch it, while visual is when you look at a photograph or an image that has texture. Hence, it gives you the reminder of how those objects actually feel. Okay, so we have texture and pattern. Therefore, if we're going to look at it and explain it further, texture can be actual or tactile or visual. Say, for example, This is Object or Luncheon in Fur in 1936 by Meret Oppenheim. Another is Bintana ni Momoy by Imeldo, Meps, and Daya. We had collage, which is taken from the word coller, meaning to paste, or assemblage, taken from the word assembler, meaning to assemble. Okay. And then we also have Michelangelo's David. So if you're going to look at this picture, makita nimo visually, the texture looks smooth. Kinis, may pa si David Kinis or Hamis. And then if you're going to, if you look at the picture, you're going to have the visual texture where it is smooth. And when you touch it, it gives you the visual imagery na it is smooth kasi nga it's marble or it's bronze, right? If you can look at the hands, the preciseness of the painting, mga ugat-ugat o dibanto. We also have Joaquin Sorolla, Sea and Rocks in Havia by 1900. Of course, the very famous Starry Night over the Rhone rather, by Vincent van Gogh. Okay. And then we also have space. When we talk about space, this refers to both outer and inner space. Hence, the emptiness and the area between, around, above, below, or within the objects is what we call space. You have two types of spaces. Positive space, it is the area occupied by shapes or forms. And the negative spaces, wherein there are empty spaces between the shapes or forms, such as this example. Positive space, the area occupied by shapes and forms. Negative space, if you're going to look at it differently, it is the empty spaces between the shapes that are formed or shapes or forms. Sir, pareha lang man og makita ang duha, sir. But if you're going to look at it, kani man ang shape, right? The area occupied by the shapes or the form. What does it depict also? Mura siya og pillar, sir, mura siya og jar. But if you're going to look at it, sir, napo siya yung form of face yung nagatubang sa usag-usag. So that's the area occupied by the shape or the form. Kani siya. White lang na siya nga background, but because of the shape of the or because of the form of this particular subject, then you can also depict faces going at each other. While negative spaces are the empty spaces between the shapes that are formed. Mo ni ang shape. Mo ni ang subject. Duha ka na nga ito ba? Kung say shape nga na form, kani siya, kani mura og vase or pillar or etc. or callus or baso. So this is called the negative space. Kasi nga, it is only the empty space. Empty na siya. Considered man na ito nga empty. Kaya yung atong tanaw na subject, it is the black. No, the faces that are looking from each other. So this is called the negative space. Now, shapes and forms are two-dimensional area that shows the form of an object and how it is laid out in space. Dimension refers to the amount of shape an object takes up in one direction. Say, for example, geometric shapes possess sides and angles, while organic shapes have outlines that are unpredictably curved or angular, or are a combination of different lines and forms, such as this. As you can see in the examples, right? Now, when we talk about, say, for example, kanisha, shapes and forms. So my form ani nila diri when they pose for a particular imagery. This is called Las Meninas, or the family of King Philip IV by Diego Velázquez in 1656. So if you can see here, the shape and the form takes up, the whole, or the background basically, or the subject basically takes up the subject or takes up the shape or the form in this particular picture. So that does it for our discussion with visual elements, the elements of visual arts. I hope that you were able to pick up a thing or two from our discussion. And if you can also look up different videos discussing further, the different elements of visual arts: line, color wheel, texture, and pattern, space, and volume. So thank you very much for listening and tuning into this lecture video. I'll be posting one more lecture video in preparation for the one or two more lecture videos in preparation for the midterm exam. Thank you very much and good day to everyone.